Hey there again, Jonathan Ratchik from Kramer, Dunleavy Ratchik. One of the most common types of cases that personal injury attorneys in New York City handle are pedestrians who are struck by motor vehicles. New York City, I think, averages over 10,000 pedestrian injuries every year, hundreds of fatalities. And it begs the question, in the unfortunate event that you are struck by a motor vehicle in New York City while a pedestrian, what are your rights? So the starting point for anything is always no fault insurance coverage, right? So New York is a no fault state, which means that regardless if you're a pedestrian and you're struck by a motor vehicle, regardless of who is at fault for the happening of the incident, the motor vehicle or the insurance of the motor vehicle that struck you will pay for your basic, what they call basic economic loss. Okay, that can be your lost earnings up to $2,000 a month, your medical bills, provided they're reasonable and necessary for your injuries, and any other reasonable and necessary expenses such as transportation to and from doctor's visits or pharmacy, etc. Okay, so that covers your basic economic loss in the event that you're struck by a motor vehicle as a pedestrian. And it's important that if that happens, you have to file the application for no fault benefits within 30 days of the incident. If you don't file within 30 days, you run the risk that you will be denied no fault benefits and then have to put it through potentially your own private insurance. Okay. But people don't hire lawyers to just recover no fault benefits, right? They hire lawyers so that they can get what's known as pain and suffering. Okay. And to get pain and suffering in New York, to recover damages, I should say, for pain and suffering in New York City and throughout New York State, you have to demonstrate that you've sustained a serious injury within the meaning of the law. And I think I have another video out there somewhere that talks about what constitutes serious injury within the meaning of New York insurance law. But it certainly impacts the nature, the types of cases that you can bring in New York when you seek damages following a motor vehicle crash. Okay. And it's really designed to prevent people from bringing lawsuits for every bump and bruise that they have in a motor vehicle crash. Okay. The determination of whether your injuries are serious, it's a medical determination. It's a medical legal determination. And it's always important that if you're injured in a motor vehicle crash as a pedestrian, it's important to speak to an attorney sooner rather than later, because the treatment that you receive early on and the course of treatment that you receive, or the established course of treatment you receive, can determine in large part whether you are even able or ever able to meet that serious injury threshold. Okay. So, and what's surprising is that in New York City, look, we walk around everywhere. Okay. We walk to our jobs, we walk to our schools, we walk to church, out to restaurants. And the law is designed to protect pedestrians in New York City. Okay. It is pedestrian friendly. And under the New York City Administrative Code, motor vehicles, including taxi cabs, trucks, buses, have an affirmative duty to yield the right of way to a pedestrian, hard stop. Okay. And pedestrians have a duty as well, right? A pedestrian has a duty to cross the street when it's reasonably safe to do so. But look, we have crosswalks, we have pedestrian signals, and without getting too into the weeds, if you're a pedestrian and you're crossing the street within the designated crosswalk with the signal in your favor, and a motor vehicle hits you because it failed to yield the right of way, as a matter of law, that vehicle is liable for the incident and for your resulting injuries and damages. Okay. And there are ways that this is proven in a court of law. Oftentimes, the police report by itself is sufficient to establish that the driver was negligent, right? Or sometimes when it's a little bit unclear, it's really hard, especially in Manhattan, to go anywhere and not be recorded on video. Okay. The fact of the matter is that if you're involved in an incident in New York City, especially Manhattan, chances are it is caught on surveillance camera. Okay. Whether it's a DOT traffic camera that's on the roadway, or perhaps even a building owner or a building that has surveillance cameras outside. Okay. It's going to get caught on video. And that's why it's so important to speak to a lawyer sooner rather than later, because that's the type of evidence which, after, as a rule of thumb, 30 days, it's going to get recorded over, and that evidence is going to be lost forever. And I've had cases where, notwithstanding what might be contained in a police report, okay, and depending on how seriously injured someone is, the only version that might be in the police report might be the driver's version, right? What about the pedestrian? If the pedestrian loses consciousness or they're unable to give a statement at the time, that police report might be very one-sided. But video footage or video surveillance might significantly rebut that statement and show truly what happened. Okay. So speak to an attorney sooner rather than later. We work with investigators who can go out, canvass an accident scene, and perhaps identify and get some video footage that might help support your case. Okay. And regardless, New York City and New York State, we are, at least for the time being, a pure comparative fault state, which means that even if as a pedestrian, you bear some responsibility for the happening of the incident. Okay. Maybe you were walking mid-block. Maybe you didn't look for oncoming traffic before you started crossing the street. That doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot bring a lawsuit for your pain and suffering if you've had a serious injury. Okay. That maybe the liability is split 50-50 between your own action and the driver's action. Maybe the driver was speeding or not paying attention. It's not a zero-sum game where if the pedestrian is even remotely or just the smallest bit at fault that they can't recover for their damages. That's not true. We oftentimes have clients who maybe their actions weren't perfect in the eyes of the law, but still the driver's actions were, certainly if you weigh them out, the driver's actions were significantly more substantial in contributing to the incident. A couple of last little tidbits. Many times in New York City, pedestrians are involved are in what are commonly referred to as hit and run. Okay. Maybe it's late at night or it's raining, or the driver is worried that their insurance is going to go up and they take off without reporting the incident. Or maybe they're just bad dudes and they don't want to help someone who they've harmed. Or maybe they're completely unaware that they were involved in an incident and they felt maybe a sound come from the back of their truck and didn't know it and they just kept traveling. If you have your own car insurance, you can file what's known as an SUM claim, okay? An uninsured motorist claim or supplementary uninsured motorist claim with your own insurance company, motor vehicle insurance, if you're in a hit and run. Or if you don't own a vehicle or live with someone who owns a vehicle, you can file a claim with the Motor Vehicle Accident Indemnification Corporation, known as MVAIC. Okay, that is New York's insurance company. It's a state-run program. It's New York's insurance of last resort, with unfortunately minimum insurance policies of only up to $25,000. But MVAIC provides a way of compensating pedestrians or individuals who have been involved in hit and runs. But there are certainly a lot of caveats, right? The incident has to be reported to the police within, I forget what it is, either 24 or 72 hours. I forget how much it is, but it does have to be reported, and the person have to verify that you're a New York State resident and that you don't live with anyone who owns a motor vehicle. So, if there's no insurance and you're involved in an actual hit and run, you have to file a claim within MVAIC, and there are very strict time limits by which time you have to file a claim. And the same holds true if you're involved in an incident involving a New York City bus, right? So, the MTA and the New York City Transit Authority, these are municipal agencies, which means that if you're involved in an incident with a bus, okay, or garbage truck, you have to file what's known as a notice of claim within 90 days of the incident. That is a legal prerequisite before you can bring a lawsuit against the MTA or the New York City Transit Authority, okay? And again, regardless of whether you have a claim against a taxi cab or a New York City Transit Authority bus or whomever it might be, if you're a pedestrian, it's always important. The same rules apply as a pedestrian if you're in a motor vehicle crash, okay? Call the police so that the police can document the roadway conditions, get a statement from the driver, get identifying information, or get information that I can identify the owner and operator of the motor vehicle, okay? If you can, take photographs of the scene of the incident or of your bruising, just like video footage. Bruising, it's very probative and relevant when you want to establish that your injuries are serious, but that type of evidence disappears. Once you heal and you get better, the bruising goes away, okay? And that can be very compelling evidence to show to a jury at the time of trial. So it's important that either you or someone you know take photographs or video of it before it's lost, okay? Again, don't give recorded statements to insurance companies. They're not there to help you. They're there to help their insured and they're ultimately their bottom line, okay? And they want nothing more than for an injured person give a recorded statement and then to accept a quick settlement before they even realize the full nature and extent of their injuries or how strong their case might be. It always makes sense, if you can, speak to a personal injury attorney sooner rather than later. The consultations are always free, but the advice can be priceless. So again, thank you for your time. Jonathan Ratchik, Kramer, Dunleavy, and Ratchik, experience you expect, commitment you deserve.